8 days. That's all I'd ask for. A short vacation to clear my head after months of watching my son Alan spiral deeper into financial chaos with his wife, Flora. I'd raised Alan alone in our Lincoln Park brownstone, working double shifts as a financial analyst to give him opportunities I never had. The house wasn't just four walls. It was every sacrifice, every late night, every choice to go without so he could have more. When the taxi pulled up to my street that Tuesday afternoon, something felt wrong immediately. My car wasn't in the driveway. I paid the driver with trembling hands, my analyst mind already cataloging inconsistencies. The lawn looked freshly mowed. I hadn't hired anyone. The porch light was on in daylight, small things that added up to something larger. My mother, Carol, stood by the front door, not waiting to greet me with a hug, but positioned there, arms crossed. Beside her, Flora leaned against the gleaming white SUV I'd never seen before, her expression a mixture of nervousness and defiance. "You're back early," Carol said, no warmth in her voice. I walked toward them slowly, my travel bag suddenly heavy on my shoulder. "Where's my car?" "Sold it," Flora said quickly. "We needed—" "You sold my car?" I stopped at the bottom of the porch steps, my heart beginning to pound. Alan signed the title? Without asking me? Flora exchanged the glance with my mother. Something passed between them, a shared secret, a decision already made. "We sold more than the car, Denice," Carol said, and for the first time I heard something in her voice I'd never associated with my mother. Cruelty. The words didn't make sense at first. I heard them, but they seemed to come from very far away. "What?" "The house, this house," Flora gestured around us with forced casualness. "Alan signed the papers last week. We got $380,000 for it, enough to clear my debts, and then some. The new owners take possession on Friday." My legs felt weak. I gripped the porch railing. "That's impossible. Alan can't sell my house. His name isn't on the deed." "He had power of attorney," Carol said, and now I heard the triumph creeping into her voice. "You signed it last year, remember, when you had that procedure and needed someone to handle things?" I do remember. A simple medical power of attorney for a minor outpatient surgery, but that couldn't cover selling property. Unless— "You forged additional documents," I said quietly. It wasn't a question. Flora's smile faltered for just a second. "It's done, Denice. The closing happened 3 days ago. The money's already been transferred to pay off my creditors. You can stay until Friday, but then you need to be out. We figured you could rent something smaller, more appropriate for your age." I stared at them both, my mother and my daughter-in-law, standing there so confident, so certain they'd gotten away with something clever. Behind them, through the front window, I could see the edge of my favorite chair, the bookshelf I'd built with my own hands. And something inside me, something that had been bending under the weight of their years of financial irresponsibility and manipulation, finally snapped. But I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, I felt a strange calm settle over me, the same calm I felt when reviewing complex financial statements at work, when the numbers started to tell me a story their creators didn't want me to see. "I need to make some calls," I said quietly. "Is Alan here?" "He's at work," Flora said, relaxing slightly, apparently relieved I wasn't making a scene. "You know how Alan is. He hates confrontation." "Yes," I said. "I know exactly how Alan is." I walked past them into the house, my house, for 3 more days apparently, and went straight to my bedroom. I closed the door, sat on the bed, and pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking, but my mind was crystal clear. They'd made a mistake, maybe several mistakes, and I was going to find every single one. I didn't sleep that night. While Flora and Carol celebrated downstairs, I could hear the cork popping, the laughter. I sat at my desk and began making calls. The first was to my real estate attorney, Janet Moreno, catching her just before she left her office. "Janet, it's Denice Jackson. I need you to pull the recent transaction history on my property, all of it." "Denice, is everything okay?" "No, someone forged my signature and sold my house while I was out of town." There was a sharp intake of breath. "That's real estate fraud. Have you called the police?"
Not yet. First, I need to know exactly what they did. Can you access the county recorder's office tonight? I can check online right now. Hold on. The seconds stretched out. I heard typing, then a long silence. "Denice, there's a deed transfer recorded 6 days ago. Sale price listed as $380,000. But here's the thing. The signature on the power of attorney, I have your real signature on file from when we worked together last year. This one is close, but it's not quite right. The notary seal also looks suspicious. This won't hold up to scrutiny." "So it's definitely fraud." "Absolutely. But Denice, there's a problem. If the buyers were acting in good faith, if they had no reason to suspect the documents were forged, they're protected. You might get criminal charges against whoever forged your signature, but getting your house back could be complicated. Illinois law protects innocent purchasers." My stomach dropped. So even though someone stole my house, I might not be able to get it back? "It depends. Who bought it?" I thought of Flora's evasive answer when I'd asked, "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out." The second call was to my bank. The automated system told me my checking account balance, $127.43. I logged into my online banking and I saw it immediately. A transfer out of $35,000 dated 5 days ago with the memo line, "Property Tax Settlement Advance." They'd drained my savings account too. Everything I'd set aside for retirement, for emergencies, gone. The third call was the hardest. I dialed Alan's number and waited. "Mom?" His voice was tight, guilty. "I was going to call you." "Were you?" I kept my voice level. "When exactly were you going to mention you'd forged my signature and sold my house?" It wasn't like that. Flora was going to lose everything. The creditors were threatening to sue to take her parents' house. I had to do something." "You had to commit fraud?" "The house is too big for you anyway, Mom. You always said you might downsize someday. I just accelerated the timeline, and we'll give you money from the sale, enough to get a nice condo somewhere." "Alan," I cut him off, my voice hard now. "Do you understand what you've done? This isn't borrowing money you plan to pay back. This is forgery, wire fraud. These are federal crimes. Nobody has to know. The sale is done, the new owners are happy. You're the only one who could make this a problem, and you won't because I'm your son." The naked manipulation in that last sentence, the certainty that my love for him would override everything else, finally broke through my shock and landed as pure anger. "Where are you right now?" "At the apartment. Flora and I are staying downtown until this blows over." "Until what exactly blows over? Until I just accept that my family stole everything I own?" "Mom, don't be dramatic. We're family. Family helps each other." I hung up. Over the next 2 days, I became someone I barely recognized. The grieving mother was still there somewhere, but she had been shoved aside by something sharper. The forensic analyst I'd always been at work now turned toward my own life. I contacted the title company that had handled the sale. They were reluctant at first, but when I explained that I was the legal owner and that fraud had been committed, they agreed to let me review the file. The buyer was listed as Heritage Property Solutions, LLC, a company I'd never heard of. The managing member, Michael Torrens. I ran the name and company through every database I had access to. The LLC had been formed 6 months ago. Its only listed asset was my house. The business address was a UPS store in Schaumburg. A shell company. The buyers weren't a family looking for a home. This was an investment flip. I called the number listed for Heritage Property Solutions and got voicemail. I left a message explaining who I was and that I needed to discuss the recent property purchase urgently. Michael Torrance called me back within an hour. Miss Jackson, I got your message. I have to say, this is highly unusual. The sale was completed through proper legal channels. We did our due diligence.
The power of attorney used to authorize the sale was forged, I said bluntly. The notary seal was fake. I was out of the country when the closing happened, and I never authorized any of this. Are you certain? Completely. I've already spoken with my attorney and the police. I'm calling you as a courtesy because I believe you may be a victim here too. But I need to know, how did you find this property? Who approached you? A woman named Flora Jackson. She said her mother-in-law was elderly and needed to liquidate assets from medical care. She seemed legitimate. We checked the title, checked the POA on file. What did Flora tell you about me? That you were diminished, early dementia, that the family was handling your affairs now. Miss Jackson, if what you're saying is true, we're out $380,000. Join the club, I said bitterly. But Mr. Torrance, here's what I'm going to need from you. I didn't confront Flora and Carol again directly. Instead, I became invisible in my own house, watching, documenting, and waiting. What I learned in those 2 days rewrote everything I thought I knew about my family. Flora had been planning this for almost a year. I found email printouts in the trash, messages to my mother discussing the house problem and getting Dee out of the way. They'd tried to get Alan to convince me to add his name to the deed last Christmas. When I'd refused, they'd moved to Plan B, forgery. Carol, my own mother, had been the one to practice copying my signature. I found the practice sheets hidden in her room, dozens of versions of my name, each one getting closer to the real thing. Alan's role was more passive, but no less damaging. He'd known. He'd signed closing documents. He'd accepted the money, and he told himself it was justified because Mom would never really be homeless. She's too smart for that. She'll figure something out. The casual cruelty of it, the assumption that stealing my life's work was acceptable because I'd somehow survive it, was almost worse than the theft itself. On Thursday morning, I made my move. I'd spent the previous evening with Janet reviewing everything we had. The forged POA, the suspicious notary, the transaction timeline that made it impossible for me to have authorized anything. We had Flora's emails discussing the plan. We had Carol's signature practice sheets. We had Alan's signed acknowledgement at closing that he was acting on behalf of the property owner. Most crucially, we had Michael Torrance's full cooperation. Heritage Property Solutions was willing to testify that they'd been deceived about my mental capacity and had proceeded with the sale based on fraudulent representations. This is solid, Janet said. The DA will definitely prosecute. The question is, do you want to press charges against all three of them? I thought about Alan, my son, the boy I'd raised alone, sacrificed for, believed in even when everyone else said I was being taken advantage of. Yes, I said. All three. Denice, you need to be sure. Alan will likely face prison time. So will Flora. Your mother, given her age, might get house arrest or probation, but there will be consequences. They stole my house, I said quietly. They forged my signature. They drained my bank accounts. And when I found out, they laughed at me. They called me dramatic for being upset that I was suddenly homeless. So yes, Janet, I'm sure. That afternoon, I called a family meeting. I told Flora and Carol I wanted to discuss next steps, that I'd found a condo I could afford to rent and just needed to understand the timeline. They were relieved. Carol actually hugged me. I knew you'd be reasonable about this, honey. It's really for the best. The house was becoming too much for you anyway. Alan arrived an hour later, still reluctant to face me, but now willing that I thought I had accepted the situation. We sat in my living room, the room where Alan learned to walk, where I'd read him bedtime stories,
where I'd celebrated every report card and school achievement. "So, you found a place?" Alan asked, not quite meeting my eyes. "I have, but first I need to ask you all something. Did any of you at any point think about what this would do to me?" Flora shifted uncomfortably. "Denice, you're being melodramatic again. I'm not finished." My voice was sharp enough that she stopped. "Did you think about the fact that I'm 63 years old, that I've worked since I was 16, that every single thing I own went into this house and into raising you, Alan? Did you consider that at all?"
"Mom, you'll be fine," Alan said, but his voice wavered. "You always are." "No," I said, "I won't be fine, because my family, the people I loved and trusted more than anyone in the world, stole everything I had. And you didn't do it because you were desperate or because it was life or death. You did it because it was convenient, because Flora spent $400,000 she didn't have on a business that failed, and rather than face consequences, you decided I should face them instead." Carol stood up. "Now that's enough. We did what we had to do." "You forged my signature," I said, my voice rising now. "You created fake notary documents. You lied to the buyers and told them I had dementia. You drained my bank accounts, and then you stood in my driveway and mocked me for being homeless." "We were giving you money," Flora started. "You were giving me a fraction of what you stole and acting like I should be grateful." I pulled out my phone. I recorded our conversation. That first day when I came home, when you told me I didn't live here anymore, when you laughed. The color drained from Flora's face. "You recorded us?" "I did, and I've given that recording along with all the forged documents, the fake notary seal, your planning emails, and Carol's signature practice sheets to the state's attorney's office. They'll be issuing arrest warrants this evening." Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Alan recovered first, his face going pale. "Mom, no, you can't." "I already have." "But I'm your son." "And I was your mother." The words came out as a shout, months of hurt and betrayal finally breaking through. "I was your mother, Alan. I gave you everything, and you repaid me by stealing my home and assuming I just accept it because I loved you too much to fight back." Carol grabbed my arm. "Denice, please, think about what you're doing." "I've thought about nothing else for 3 days." I pulled my arm away. "You raised me to believe family was everything, but you taught me the wrong lesson. You taught me that family means accepting abuse, that love means being a doormat. Well, I'm done learning that lesson." There was a knock at the door. Through the window, I could see 2 police cars parked at the curb. Flora ran for the back door, but Janet was standing there. I'd asked her to wait outside. "I wouldn't," Janet said calmly. "It'll just add evading arrest to your charges." The next 20 minutes were a blur. The police were professional, almost gentle, as they explained the charges: wire fraud, forgery, grand theft. Flora cried. Carol argued. Alan just stood there, staring at me like he'd never seen me before. "Mom," he said as they led him toward the door in handcuffs, "please, don't do this." I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. Not the boy I'd raised, but the man he'd chosen to become. A man who would steal from his own mother and then ask her to protect him from the consequences. "I love you, Alan. I will always love you, but I won't let you destroy me to save yourself." They took him away. The legal process took 9 months. Heritage Property Solutions agreed to reverse the sale once the fraud was confirmed, though it required additional legal maneuvering. Michael Torrens was decent about it. He'd been scammed too, after all, and he chose to be cooperative rather than combative. My bank accounts were harder to recover.
Flora had already paid her creditors, and clawing that money back required separate civil suits. In the end, I recovered about 60% of what they'd stolen. The rest was gone. Alan, Flora, and Carol all took plea deals. Alan got 2 years in minimum security with the possibility of early release. Flora got 3 years. Carol, because of her age and health, got 3 years of probation and a suspended sentence. I didn't attend any of their sentencing hearings. People asked me afterward if I felt guilty, if I regretted pressing charges against my own family. The answer was complicated. I grieved. I grieved for the son I thought I had, for the mother I'd believed in, for the illusion of family that had sustained me for so long. But I didn't regret protecting myself. I didn't regret demanding accountability. The house felt different now. Bigger. Emptier. But it was mine. Legally. Indisputably mine. I had it rekeyed. I changed my will to leave it to charity. And slowly, carefully, I began to build a new life. A life where trust wasn't given blindly, where love didn't mean accepting abuse, where family was defined not by blood, but by respect and integrity. 6 months after the sentencing, I got a letter from Alan. It was postmarked from the correctional facility downstate. I stared at it for a long time before opening it.
Dear Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. I've had a lot of time to think about what I did, and I finally understand what I couldn't see before. I didn't just steal your house. I stole your security, your peace, your trust. I stole the relationship we had. And I did it because I was weak and selfish, and because I'd spent so long taking from you that I forgot you were a person with needs and limits and breaking points. Flora and I are getting divorced. She's blaming me for everything, which is almost funny because we both know we're equally guilty. But I'm done making excuses. I'm done blaming others for my choices. I know I can never make this right, but I want you to know that I see what I did now. I see you now, not as Mom, the inexhaustible resource, but as Denice, a person who worked hard and sacrificed and deserved better than what we gave you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Alan. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd be ready to respond. Maybe someday I'd be ready to rebuild something with my son, though it would never be what it was. But that day wasn't today. Today, I made coffee in my kitchen. I sat on my porch and watched the morning light spread across Lincoln Park. I ran my hand along the railing I'd installed myself, feeling the familiar grain of the wood. And I reminded myself, I am Denice Jackson. I built this house with my own hands, my own money, my own stubborn refusal to give up. They tried to take it from me, and I fought back. I survived my family's betrayal, and I learned that sometimes the strongest form of love is the willingness to say enough. The house still stands, so do I. 3 years later, Alan was released early for good behavior. We met for coffee at a neutral cafe downtown, neither my house nor anywhere connected to Flora or Carol. He looked different, thinner, older, but there was something else, something I hadn't seen in years, clarity in his eyes. I don't expect you to welcome me back, he said, after we'd sat in awkward silence for several minutes. I just wanted to see you, to tell you in person that I'm trying to do better. Are you? I asked. I got my GED while I was inside. I'm working for a nonprofit now, helping people manage debt. It seemed appropriate. He smiled, but it was sad. Flora writes sometimes. She's still angry, still doesn't think she did anything really wrong. But I do. I know exactly what I did. And your grandmother? Grandma Carol had a stroke last year. She's in a care facility. I visit when I can. I sipped my coffee. Part of me wanted to ask if he needed money for Carol's care,
The old Denice would have already been pulling out her checkbook, but I caught myself. "I'm glad you're doing better," I said carefully. "I mean that." He had a half-half smile on his face, a sad one really, but he knew what I was trying to say. "I know I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be someone you could be proud of again, not for your forgiveness, just because it's right." We talked for another hour about small things, safe things, his job, my volunteer work with a financial literacy program. The coffee was mediocre and the conversation was stilted, but it was honest. When we parted, Alan hesitated, then asked, "Could we do this again sometime? Coffee? Just coffee?" I thought about it, about trust and betrayal and whether broken things could ever be truly repaired. "Maybe," I said. "Call me in a few months. We'll see." It wasn't reconciliation, it wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was possibility. Small, fragile, cautious. As I walked back to my car, I realized I was okay with that. I'd learned to protect myself without closing my heart completely, to be careful without being cruel, to love without being destroyed by that love. The house in Lincoln Park was still my sanctuary, but I'd learned that I was stronger than any building, more resilient than any structure. They'd tried to take my home. Instead, they'd taught me that I could survive anything. And that was a lesson worth more than any property deed. If you have ever been underestimated, and if you believe that intelligence is the ultimate form of revenge, like this video. What do you think Denice should have done with the $405,000 cash the police recovered? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next story of sweet, calculated revenge.